Getting pulled over is stressful. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and sometimes words come out of your mouth before your brain has time to stop them. But here's the thing, certain phrases during a traffic stop can turn a simple warning into an arrest. Today, we're talking about the statements that will almost guarantee you're leaving in handcuffs instead of with just a ticket. Let's start with the classics. I know my rights. Ironically, shouting this phrase usually demonstrates that you don't actually know your rights. Officers hear this dozens of times a week, usually right before someone refuses to provide their license and registration, which is actually required by law in every state. Yes, you have rights during a traffic stop, but you also have legal obligations, and refusing to comply with lawful orders while yelling about the Constitution isn't exercising your rights. It's creating probable cause for obstruction charges. Here's another winner. I pay your salary. This statement accomplishes exactly nothing except irritating the person deciding whether to give you a warning or write you a ticket. Technically, taxpayers fund public services, but so does the officer standing at your window. This phrase doesn't invoke some magical immunity. It just makes you sound entitled and difficult. And difficult people tend to get tickets, not warnings. Now let's talk about threats. Do you know who I am? Or I know the chief of police, or my lawyer is going to hear about this. These statements might work in movies, but in real life, they're red flags. Officers document everything, especially threats or attempts at intimidation. What you think sounds powerful actually sounds like you're trying to obstruct their duties or influence their decision through improper means. That can add charges, not remove them. Here's a phrase that seemed harmless but isn't. I only had 2 drinks. Congratulations, you just admitted to drinking and driving. Even if you're under the legal limit, you've now given the officer probable cause to investigate further. Field sobriety tests, breathalyzers, the whole process begins because you volunteered information you were never required to provide. The Fifth Amendment exists for a reason. You have the right to remain silent. Use it. Go ahead and search my car. I've got nothing to hide. This invitation can haunt you even when you genuinely believe you're innocent. Maybe you forgot about that pocket knife in the console that's slightly over the legal length limit in your state. Maybe your friend left something in your car without your knowledge. Maybe you have a prescription medication that's technically required to be in its original container. By consenting to a search, you've waived your Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches. If an officer doesn't have probable cause to search, don't give them permission. Let's address the argumentative approach. That speed limit sign was hidden, or everyone else was going that fast, or this is entrapment. First, entrapment is a very specific legal concept that almost certainly doesn't apply to your traffic stop. Second, arguing about the circumstances of your violation isn't going to change the officer's mind. You're not in court. You're on the side of the road. The place to contest your ticket is in front of a judge, not in the moment. Getting argumentative only escalates tension and makes everything worse. I wasn't doing anything wrong. When you clearly were doing something wrong is another fast track to a citation. Denying the obvious when an officer clocked you going 20 over the speed limit doesn't make you seem honest. It makes you seem dishonest. And dishonesty makes officers suspicious. Suspicious officers look harder. Looking harder means they might notice other infractions you weren't even aware of. Here's a dangerous one. Making sudden movements or reaching for things before being asked. This isn't something you say, but it's worth addressing. When an officer approaches, keep your hands visible on the steering wheel. Don't reach for your license, your registration, or anything else until you're asked to do so. Officers approach traffic stops, not knowing if they're about to encounter someone with a weapon. Sudden movements trigger defensive responses. Announce what you're doing. My license is in my wallet in my back pocket. Is it okay if I reach for it? This simple communication prevents misunderstandings that can turn deadly. Now let's talk about recording. You absolutely have the right to record police interactions in public, including traffic stops. But how you assert this right matters. I'm recording you and there's nothing you can do about it. Is confrontational. Officer, just so you're aware, I'm recording this interaction for both of our protection is respectful. The legal right is the same. The outcome can be very different. Officers generally don't mind being recorded when people are polite about it. They deal with cameras constantly. It's the aggressive assertion that creates problems. Lying is perhaps the fastest way to escalate a minor traffic stop into a criminal matter. I didn't run that red light when there's dashcam footage proving you did. This isn't my car when the registration is in your name. I don't have any warrants when you know you do. Officers verify everything. They run your information through their systems. They check facts. When they catch you in a lie, they now have reason to question everything else you've said. Minor infractions become investigations. Investigations become arrests. Let's discuss medical excuses used dishonestly. I'm having a medical emergency when you're not actually having one is a terrible idea for multiple reasons. First, it might result in an ambulance being called, which means you'll be taken to a hospital whether you want to go or not. Second, if they discover you faked a medical emergency to avoid a ticket, you've potentially committed filing a false report. Third, crying wolf means that when people actually need emergency help, they're less likely to be believed. Physical resistance is the ultimate mistake, though hopefully this goes without saying. You can't arrest me or don't touch me while physically pulling away or fighting an officer transforms any situation into a guaranteed arrest. Resisting arrest is a separate criminal charge on top of whatever you were initially stopped for. You might beat the original charge in court. You won't beat the resisting charge if it's captured on video. Comply first, contest later. This isn't about fairness or rights in the moment. It's about not making a bad situation exponentially worse. Here's a subtler problem: being too clever. Asking, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" might seem like you're asserting your rights, but timing matters enormously. You can't leave a traffic stop until it's concluded. You've been stopped for a specific reason, and the officer is legally allowed to detain you temporarily to address that reason. Asking if you're free to go when you're obviously not free to go just makes you seem difficult. Save that question for situations where it actually applies, like when an officer asks to chat with you when you haven't violated any laws. Bringing up unrelated grievances is another mistake. "Last time I got pulled over, the officer was really rude," or "Why aren't you out catching real criminals?" These statements don't help your situation. The officer in front of you isn't responsible for your previous experiences with law enforcement. They're not setting department priorities. They're doing their job. Making them defensive doesn't benefit you. Here's something people don't realize: admitting to other crimes while trying to explain yourself. "I was speeding because I just smoked weed and I'm trying to get home quick." Or, "I know my inspection sticker is expired, but I also need to renew my license." You've now given the officer multiple violations to cite you for. They might have only noticed one. You just handed them more. False accusations are incredibly serious. "You only pulled me over because of my race," when that's not why you were pulled over, doesn't make the situation better. Racial profiling is a real and serious problem in law enforcement, and false accusations diminish the credibility of legitimate complaints. If you genuinely believe you were profiled, document everything, get badge numbers, and file a formal complaint through proper channels. But understand that if dashcam footage shows you committing a clear traffic violation, claiming discrimination won't help you and might hurt future legitimate claims. During a traffic stop, say only what's legally required. Provide your license, registration, and insurance when asked. Answer basic questions politely, but you can decline questions about where you've been or where you're going. Saying, "Officer, I'd prefer not to answer beyond providing my documents," is legal and safer than lying. Traffic stops are temporary but can have lasting consequences. Keep your hands visible, be respectful, don't argue or lie, and never consent to searches unless necessary. Your goal is simple: get through the stop safely and legally. You can contest tickets or file complaints later, but you can't do that if you're in trouble for what you said on the roadside.